Welcome again to another episode of Unapologetic Leadership. This one's called Alignment Before Action. Invite God's Wisdom for Executive Team Cohesion. Well, speed kills, and if you're running in different directions, that's not a good thing. So you have to realize that it's so important to be aligned before you start running and getting up to speed, because that's going to mess up everything. And it's going to be so difficult to try to get back to a place where you can really have good results. So many times I found that many executive teams, they start acting before aligning. They just assume everything's kosher, that everybody is on the same page, that everybody understands clearly what the mission is. However, when teams start acting without having both the wisdom and the clarity, that is huge in terms of waste and costly rework and burnout. And when everybody's clear and you move as one cohesive unit, that is powerful. That builds trust. That allows for you to reach your goals on time and maybe even before your deadline. So when clarity's missing, even the best people drift. Even the best teams drift. The best organizations drift. And now we're talking about multiples of the outcome and outputs that you have, or multiples of the waste that you end up creating. And Proverbs 16:3 out of scripture says, commit your way to the Lord and your plans will be established. So before any of us takes action, Proverbs 16:3 reminds us to commit our way to the Lord, because alignment with Him precedes alignment with people. And that's why before every project, every meeting, every decision, I pause and pray for wisdom. Do I always do that? No, even though I said I did. And the reason why I said it that way is because that is my intention and my goal and what I want. However, there are times when I'm rushing. There are times when I'm overtaxed. There are times that I'm just human. And that's okay to be that, because God is forgiving. However, if and when there's a point where I remember, and sometimes it's during that project or afterward, I still say a prayer and ask God both for forgiveness and for His continued wisdom and blessing in everything that I do. So we're not talking about perfection, because that's not God wants of us. God wants to have a relationship with us. God wants to bless us. God loves us. That's important. So the cost of misalignment, as I spoke a little bit earlier, is huge. You waste all kinds of resources, from time, which you can never get back. Money is wasted. Revenue is wasted. Those things you can't get back, but you can learn from those and you can create more money and resources. But how frustrating that is, especially if you've had a sound plan, clear execution, and there's no reason why you're going through the same loop over and over again. And if you call it a mistake, making these same mistakes over and over again, then yeah, that's unacceptable, especially when you don't want to repeat history if it's not going in the right direction. Repeat your mistakes and errors, especially with their goals. It duplicates the effort. How frustrating is that for yourself as an executive, as a leader, for your organization, and then for your teams? Because when your teams start having that, once again, it starts to erode trust and their faith in you, that you even know what you're doing or what you're talking about. And once again, none of us is perfect. However, how can we improve the direction we're going in and what we're doing? And this also creates conflicting priorities. When you're going in different direction, and this is a regular habitual thing, that's going to just silo your teams. Everybody's going to be separated. Now, instead of having one cohesive unit as the organization or leadership teams within the organization, now you have opposing, conflicting teams, people realizing it's no use talking and communicating or trying to get things aligned because there's no use. This always happens. And people start to get in their own heads about it. It's just a waste of effort, a waste of breath that they're taking. So don't set your teams and your collaborators, and this could be outside of your organization, whether they're service providers, other organizations that help and support you, or people who provide things to you. You want to have allies in all these different areas and good relationships, good communication. So it's a win-win and not just you work for me. That's a terrible attitude to have, a terrible mindset. And you also don't want to have these leaders competing instead of being willing to be assertive and collaborate. You want people to, man, if they have a question or they need some help, to be able to have an open avenue and feel good about reaching out for help and being transparent. And then misalignment can happen, which that's just going to equal quiet frustration and loud inefficiency. I'm going to say that again. Misalignment can equal quiet frustration and loud inefficiency. So imagine when you are trying to get things done and now all of a sudden everybody's quiet about it. They don't contribute. They don't help out. When you think everybody's on your side and everybody's doing what they can do, but they've talked themselves out of it. That's quiet frustration. And you can sense that, especially in meetings when there are certain people who maybe used to contribute to meetings and offer suggestions and be all for the goals and be 100% in, and all of a sudden they're quiet now. And more of the recent past, they're quiet when it comes to giving innovative ideas. They're quiet and disengaged. That's not good. And the whole idea of quiet frustration plus loud inefficiency. Ooh, that's a mic drop. Loud inefficiency. It's obvious. It's the elephant in the room. However, we're not doing anything about it. We're not talking about those things that are so obvious. And if that's the case, why aren't you talking about those things? Why aren't you bringing them up? Have you developed a habit of, what's the use? I don't get any feedback. Seems like me against everybody else, or it seems like certain people are just a monkey wrench in the whole plan. So figure that out. And if something's important and worth doing, it's worth doing, even though it may be frustrating. I have examples where I've typically in the past with my attitude and not wanting to have confrontation, I know there have been many times where I've said, oh, I don't want to even ask this question. I'll just assume we're on the same path. I'll just assume we all have the same clarity around the mission and the goal. And that has caused so much rework, so many wasted resources of time and money, and just added to the frustration. And then it sets up the habit. That's probably the worst thing that happens. It sets up a mental block and then a habit where we're not willing to do what's right, to clarify, simplify, to move forward. We've in the past consulted with a company that had housing and building materials that they sold. And the owner refused to participate in the consulting conversations. And they basically pushed all the communication and direction to a new employee who was handling things. I laugh because it brings back some of those memories of this is interesting. And I wasn't assertive enough in my communication with them at this time. And that particular employee who was new made 90% of the decisions, intook all the information, did the planning, created revisions to everything that was going on, and they were setting the direction and doing the day-to-day. But after all of the consulting and coaching effort and progress, it was crazy. We'd get down to the end after doing all this work and assumed this person was in charge and in control, or just the way they had it. And I'm pretty sure we eventually asked them, "Hey, you're good? You're the one making this decision?" "Yep, I am. I approved the the quotation. I approved everything that we're doing. We're moving forward." And that was later on in the game, just to confirm that. And they said, "Yes, we are." However, what would happen is that we get all the way down the road, 90%, and all of a sudden the owner would suddenly step in and there would be a completely different plan or a stop in what was going on. The owner doesn't like it. The owner doesn't want it. And every time it pretty much erased weeks of progress, and we were confused. And this only happened a couple of times. And it drained our staff. It drained me. It drained this other person, the employee. They were somewhat frustrated and thought they were going in the right direction. But with that absentee owner who really made all the decisions, it caused huge frustration, wasted time, and the project ended up getting canceled. That was a huge learning lesson for me. And it helped me to learn to set more boundaries, helped me to clarify my contracts better, helped me to engage in being willing to lean into being more assertive and asking great clarifying questions, and then clarifying what the project and the steps look like moving forward. So I don't know how many of you have dealt with that kind of situation where you've put in all this time, communication, effort, research, knowledge, and a lot of expenses that you just can't get back, only because some type of monkey wrench happened, and mainly because you weren't assertive enough or you weren't clear enough on how this project should work, the timelines, and what the responsibilities were for both sides, everybody on your side and the responsibilities on the other person's side. Because anytime we get into any engagement, if that's with our staff, we are technically in partnership with them. If it's with our stakeholders, we are in partnership with them. If we are working with our service providers, we are in partnership with them. And if there's a weakest link in anywhere of those, any area of those, you're only as good as your weakest link. It took me a long time to realize that, what that exactly meant. I'm like, is that really true? Is that really true? And I've seen it time and time again. Yes. Wherever there's a weakest link, that's going to be how fast you can run and how efficiently, how aligned that you are. And that's what we're talking about, alignment before moving fast and taking action. And without communication from the top, alignment is impossible. And confusion becomes the culture. And if that's the culture, that's not going to last long, because we're in partnership with everyone we do business with, we communicate with. That's a part of the project, all the way up into our clients. We're in partnership with our clients. So that's why it's important to choose the right clients, to choose the type of people you want to work for. Because if you choose the wrong people or they're not profitable clients, this is going to be the worst thing and choice that you could make, because it not just only wastes the resources, time, and effort, and maybe this is an unprofitable project with this client, but it also too takes away your opportunities for new and more aligned clients where it's a win-win situation. Those opportunity costs are huge and come in factors that are in multiples. You not only just lose out on, it's not just a linear situation of losing, it's a scaling in a negative way situation. And you don't want to go downhill and keep accelerating when it's a bad situation. So when leaders stay silent, they don't create freedom, they create frustration. So What does true alignment look like? True alignment is a shared vision that everyone can articulate in a clarified and simple way. Keep your visions simple, because if they're not simple and they're complex or have too many elements to them, this is going to be a confusing point. And down the road, as I like to use a lot of aviation analogies, if you get off course 1%, if you're only 10 miles down the road or 10 miles flying, it's not going to be that big of a deal. You might be a little bit off course if you're only 1% off course. But as you travel for an hour or 100 miles or a day and you travel 500 miles, you're going to be off by a lot. And once again, you're not going to get back that time. You're not going to get back those resources that you've expended. And what's the cost of opportunities that you've lost outside of what you're currently doing? So it's extremely important to be clear on your priorities and sequence of what's going to happen. Agreement is important on decision-making processes and understanding of roles and boundaries. Who has which role? Who's responsible for it? They may not do all the work, but they're responsible for making sure the project is on task, on time, and everything is accounted for. I've also seen this in boards for nonprofits where people have not assumed roles, or they have not assumed, and not assumed, but have not spoken clearly of the roles that they are taking on and the responsibilities, along with having some boundaries of what that looks like. Because we don't want to take advantage of people. We don't want to be taken advantage of. And they're just being this moving scope of what's required and what needs to happen. But we want to be clear. So it's clear on our roles, and then we can see what is missing. Who needs to pick up maybe those extra little pieces that have not been addressed? And emotionally, do we have buy-in? Have you bought in emotionally? What is your example as a leader to other people? Because what I've been told and have learned and have had coaches help me to embody is that everyone should have buy-in, and leadership is through example, 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 and not just an intellectual agreement, but get emotional. How's this going to impact not just the organization or your team, but how's this going to impact you personally in terms of promotion, in terms of damaging your reputation, in terms of your family going deeper? How does this affect your family? So not coming out of scarcity mindset or fear mindset, but coming from an assertive, positive growth mindset and truly looking at what is there to gain. I know when I've had both scarcity and a fear-based mindset, I used to always look through everything I did as, ooh, I don't want confrontation. I don't want any loss. However, I'm afraid to make decisions. I was afraid to make so many decisions because I didn't want to look dumb or stupid. I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to fail. And I came from that perspective, which is terrible. And it doesn't get you anywhere fast, except now you've created this habit over the years, over the decades, that you're just possibly slowly advancing, but in most cases you're slowly or setting yourself up just to be in this habitual loop of losing pretty much, or just being barely enough, or just barely getting by. And that can be in many different areas of your life, whether that's your health, your finances, your faith, your fitness, your family, your future, your fun, all these different areas. So you need to really think about that, getting that emotional buy-in, and not just being at a superficial level when it comes to understanding roles and boundaries and your commitment. And when everyone on the team knows the destination and what they're responsible for and what part they play and why the goal is the goal, then it's crazy how collaboration naturally falls into place. Of course, that's the funny word, how it naturally falls into place when you plan it that way. I love that. I love that. So it's important, once again, alignment before taking action. And some of the areas it's important for us to look at is defining that definition. Defining that destination. And really looking at what does success look like. So visualizing it, defining it. What are some key characteristics of that destination, the goal, and then taking some time to bring yourself, maybe closing your eyes, bringing yourself into visualization, and not just through your eyes and visualizing the pictured outcome, but also how is it going to feel? What is that going to look like? What are you going to experience? Who's around you that's going to be a part of that success plan? What new opportunities could this bring? Will this bring? And then step 2 is agree on 3 to 5 priorities once you've defined this destination. What are 3 to 5 priorities? Don't make it complex. There's a lot more things, of course. We got to look at the big picture and get us all pointed in the right direction first. Then we can figure out some of the nuances as we go down the road and as we start to or continue to plan. Put in some of those pieces that will be important to the project, those important milestones along the way. And then step 3, assign ownership. Which pieces of this puzzle or goal or destination do people need to own and to be in charge of to make sure they get done on time? And then have some accountability. Do you have any check-ins? Are you communicating on a regular basis? Just micro check-ins. And make those a small number also, because if we're doing check-ins 10 times a day, that's probably micromanaging. What we want to do is just have some check-ins that are asynchronous, that are here and there. You'll want some that are scheduled, but you also want some here and there. If you see somebody struggling, or maybe you haven't created all of the elements you need for this process and some of the boundaries and things that are going to be important to your projects, and you notice things are kind of getting out of control, or people aren't aligned, or you haven't had the scheduled check-in, it hasn't been good, or the outcomes haven't been aligned with what needs to happen by this time in order to reach your goal on time, then you'll have some of these additional asynchronous meetings or check-ins where you can realign to get back on course. Then step 4 is to pre-commit to how you'll make future decisions. Do this ahead of time. And that you, as the team lead or the owner of your business, that, hey, you have the final say so. However, everybody's part is important, and let them know how it's important and why it's important, that they're accountable and how decisions will be made in the future. So it's not a surprise to people. They totally understand what direction that you're going in. And then step 5, confirm understanding with everybody. Each member should restate exactly what they're responsible for and their plan in their own words. Because one of the fallacies is, and I'll cover this even again later, is just saying, hey, is everybody aligned? Does anybody have any questions? And if nobody says anything, people think, oh, we're all in alignment. That's how I used to do it. Like, wow, they convinced me. Look at them shaking their heads. Yes, they convinced me. They're all smiling. They don't seem to have a concern. But what I realized is that there were several people with that project that were thinking different outcomes and the time frames because they weren't clarified. So a lot of things were left to chance, which is not good. And just to use an aviation parallel here, in aviation, before a plane leaves the runway, if there's a pilot and a co-pilot, they walk through all of the detailed pre-flight checklist. They confirm the weather, a flight plan, fuel, instrumentation, the runways, if there are any delays going to happen with air traffic control. And it's the same thing as if you're a single pilot operation, like myself getting my private pilot's license and training. You still go through your checklist to confirm. And the key here is one of the sayings I've learned with pilots is that it's better to know of a problem while you're on the ground than to be flying and to have that problem happen in the air. So in other words, another way of saying this, it's better to be on the ground than flying rather than be in the air and wishing you were on the ground. So a lot of these things can be figured out before you take off. Because if you think about it, if you think about airlines, they're flying anywhere from 400 miles an hour to 500 and something miles an hour. And once you're going up there, and if there's the slightest thing off, that can cause a catastrophe. And it's hard to troubleshoot when you're already going that fast. However, if you're on the ground, you do all your checks of the aircraft, the flight controls, the engine, and all your pre-planning for flying cross country and the weather and the fuel and everything else. That can save a lot of heartache while moving fast and a lot of huge mishaps, some that you can't come back from. And some, even if you're able to come back from them, what a waste of time, what a waste of stress, what a waste of lost opportunities, those opportunity costs. So the same applies for leadership and leadership teams. When you skip alignment, small misunderstandings at 1,000 feet can turn into a full-blown turbulence at 30,000 feet. And when you take 2 minutes to clarify, simplify, decide, and act, you fly smoother and safer. Again, very simple framework. Clarify, simplify, decide what to do, then act. You'll be way better off. As they've said, I don't know if they use this phrase very often now, but back in the day, the phrase was an ounce of prevention equals a pound of cure. It took me a long time to understand what that meant too. I don't know if I just didn't understand concepts very well when I was younger, but an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Take the time ahead of time and seek God's guidance in this. Say a prayer. Invite God into everything you're doing. So before you throttle up, check alignment, because once you're airborne, confusion costs altitude. And we want to be soaring and soaring high. Executive team practices for sustained alignment. Number one, have some quarterly offsite retreats, meetings, times, so you can reset and recalibrate. I can't overemphasize getting offsite, getting out of your current situation and away from your building, or if people are working in their homes, getting away from their home outside. And just even on a simple level for each of you executive leaders, get away from your desk. Make sure you're taking several times during the day to take a break. Get up, get away from your computer. Don't just jump on social media, but take a walk. That could be a 1-minute walk. That could be a 5-minute walk, whatever it is. Get away from the office. Get outside. Go somewhere else. Get your mind away from that current environment. And those little resets just throughout the day can be amazing for regaining your energy, focus, and clarity. So for teams, once again, get away, get off site. Take a half a day, take a full day, whatever it is, and allow yourself to recalibrate and simplify and clarify. Because if you're still around your normal environment, all those things and distractions in your day-to-day are still going to be present. It's going to feel like they're physically present. It's going to feel like they're mentally present. But once you get away, and I think it's just like, wow, I go away to a conference, I go away to do a reset or a retreat. I'm not thinking about laundry. I'm not thinking about all the things that happen in the family dynamic. I'm not thinking about the grass needs to be mowed. I mean, whatever it is, you just have to get your mind away. And that also helps you appreciate many times what you have or what needs to be changed and improved so that you operate more efficiently, effectively, and your energy is aligned more efficiently. So for executives, weekly, you can have, once again, short, focused, and decision-oriented type meetings. Here's a meeting where we're going to discuss ideas. We're not going to make any decisions here. And then the next meeting after that, here's the meeting where we're going to take all those ideas and then actually have a decision-oriented meeting. That's all we're doing at this meeting, and defining and clarifying our next actions. And then make sure you have clear start and stop times that you have for each meeting, whether those are weekly, whether those are some frequency during the month or quarterly meetings. Make sure you're clear on the start, stop, and then continue times. Or, hey, we're going to push this to the next meeting for the decision point, or narrow down or clarify some of these elements. Use shared dashboards or calendars so nobody's guessing on the progress of what's happening or that next meeting and responsibilities and roles. If you have a shared dashboard or however you do it, review these things as teams so you stay on course and nobody's getting off course, because it can be terrible if you've got everybody moving fast and they're all going in different directions. Whoa, that's going to be a shocker. So you want to create these aligned checkpoints before launching new initiatives. Reinforce the why in every strategic meeting to keep the direction anchored. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are these particular people that are in this meeting important for this goal, aim, or direction? Because many times meetings have, hey, everybody, let's come to a meeting. And 30% of those people have nothing to do with that meeting. They have no decision-making process. There's no clarifying of the goal or the outcomes. It's just a waste of time for at least 30% of people. So make sure you have the right people in the meeting. And begin these meetings with a short prayer, both internally for yourself, for inviting God into this meeting and to the direction of what you guys are doing. And I don't know your organization or if you've established this habit of praying as a group beforehand. Some organizations do it. Some NFL teams do it. Some other sports teams do it. Other leadership teams come in with the humility of inviting God first before they start collaborating and working with people. And that can be extremely powerful. So begin these meetings with that short prayer, like I said, either with yourself and hopefully be established the habit of doing it in your organization and that everybody appreciates it. But if you're not aligned first, it makes it a huge challenge down the road because you've gone off on your own direction instead of having wisdom come in from God. And then be grateful. Be thankful for the opportunities you have. If you have great things happening, be grateful for those. If there are challenges, be grateful for the challenges, because within each adversity, as Napoleon Hill has said, within each adversity is the seed of equal or greater benefit. Equal or greater benefit. So your challenges tell you exactly what you can focus on to fix or improve that situation. I've never liked challenges in the past. I'm like, oh, if we can just get through this. But guess what? If we don't address those challenges, which is the seed of the solution is right within those challenges, if we don't address them, we're probably going to repeat history over and over and over again. So here's some takeaways for you. Alignment is the accelerator. When you are aligned before you start taking action, that accelerates things once action is started because everybody's on the same page. And if everybody's on the same page, people can see that, wow, this is getting off course a little bit, or, ooh, something's happening that I didn't think was supposed to happen, or the time frame is off. And when you have trust in your culture and it's a win-win for everyone, people start to speak up. People start to take responsibility. People are accountable. People want the destination and goal to happen because they realize why they're important. So alignment is the accelerator. Be willing to slow down. This is a huge thing I've seen for myself and others, that they're not willing to slow down. They have this fear that, oh, if I slow down, I'm going to lose ground. I'm going to lose speed. However, what I've found, the best leaders have slowed down to agree on things or to recalibrate, then they speed up to execute. And one of the things that if you're involved with aviation or not, that all airplanes have annual maintenance checks. That's required for every airplane. Is to have an annual airplane check and maintenance check. And they have maybe more checks than that. If it's a training aircraft that trains students, they might have a 100-hour check. Some places where I've flown, they do a 50-hour check after 50 hours because a lot of things can happen when people are renting airplanes or training and all kinds of crazy things. You know, a lot of it's rough. Students are rough on airplanes. Any student is. Same thing on a vehicle or a car. So having those regular maintenance checks on airplanes are required, which is a good thing, because sometimes you can't see some of the challenges or the structure that's being stressed inside of the aircraft and inside the metal and or the fabric, depending on how the airplane's made. It covers up everything. But if we do regular checks, the same thing for leaders, we do checkups, we slow down, we get some realignment, some rest, some recovery time, or just checking up on the progress of how the project is going. That can help to get things back on track and get things moving in the right direction. So I challenge you in your next leadership meeting, ask, are we truly aligned or just politely nodding? Are we truly aligned or just politely nodding? And that's actually a terrible way to ask it. In aviation procedures, the way we work, in most of our communications, we get a command from air traffic control and we repeat it back to them. We repeat our tail number so they know that we're the right aircraft that's doing this, that they're talking to, and that's responding. And we clarify, we repeat back verbatim, in most cases, exactly what they have said to us to confirm it. Yep, we're supposed to turn right. We're supposed to head in this direction. We're cleared to take off. We're cleared to land. And we repeat that back to make sure we're in the right direction. Otherwise, that could cause huge problems. It could cause a crash, could cause an incursion that is no good, or a mid-air collision for aircraft. So a better way to ask this question, instead of are we truly aligned or just politely nodding, is are we truly aligned or just politely nodding? Please let me know what your thoughts are and be clear when you respond to me. Let me know what your thoughts are on this project and where you think we're heading. What did you get out of this? And what's the time frame and what is your responsibility in all of this? And then when they are very clear and explicit on what's going on, you know right then and there if they're aligned, if you're aligned, if the team is aligned. And when the whole team is aligned and everybody's on task and understands the due dates and the roles and accountability and responsibility, then it's going to be amazing what kind of performance you have, the little amount of stress, how much more positive the collaboration is going to be. So another verse, Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 6, is trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. If you remember nothing else from today, remember this Proverb 3, verses 5 through 6, which calls us to trust in the Lord and not lean on our own understanding. Wow, what powerful wisdom that is. Alignment begins in prayer and ends in peace. Every decision you make this week, invite him first. And even now, you can take 20 seconds to just pause where you are and just even quietly in your mind, invite God into your next decision. Ask him, Lord, am I aligned with you before I act? And ask him, Lord, please align me with you and your wisdom and your outcome, and bless everything I'm about to do and communicate and be a part of. That simple moment of surrender creates space for God to lead with clarity and calm. Now, that's leadership through faith, not fear. And it's the foundation of unapologetic leadership. So I encourage you leaders, listen to this episode again. Share it with team members that you have, because alignment isn't about control. It's about clarity and collective confidence. Lead together, move together, win together. This is Cory Dunham, and this is Unapologetic Leadership. Let's keep flying with clarity, faith, and conviction.